breakfast. It's Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk with Matthew Dixon.
Place, tell you, very brave. I mean, as mayor of Dubbo Council, when you were Matthew Dickinson, you saw this problem all the time, didn't you? Drug addiction.
Well, probably the bigger problem that we saw around Dubbo was more alcohol, more than drugs.
Well,
drugs are certainly a
alcohol
problem.
is a drug.
Alcohol is a drug, that's right, which some people don't wish to acknowledge or accept. But alcohol causes more problems than illegal drugs and domestic violence. We see a lot of domestic violence problems in this whole region.
Yeah.
And most of those domestic violence problems are caused as a result of some alcohol in the mix there, if you like. Drugs are certainly a problem as well.
I think Melissa's very brave to tell us her story about it all. She struggled, didn't have friends, relatives said up yours, turned their backs, and she's been clean now for half a year. And she's got this meeting for Narcotics Anonymous. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I think the
I mean,
important...
most of us don't face our demons, do we, man?
No, and I think the important thing there is that there is some hope, obviously, and people see that, and also taking some action. That's the most, whatever problem you've got, whatever you're trying to deal with, you just have to take the first step, and the next steps get easier and easier, but the first step is the toughest.
Well, she said the best thing that ever happened to her was she was thrown behind bars.
Yeah, it sounds pretty scary, doesn't it?
Gee, got a lesson learned.
Yeah.
5 children now, so good luck to her.
Yeah.
All right, change of pace, as we say. Electric vehicles, and we were talking together earlier this week about trucks now. Fortescue, Twiggy's done the right thing, and he's got the EV Ford Rangers.
Well, not so much EV, but they're autonomous at this stage.
Yeah.
But you're right, in the mining game, BHP has actually got some Toyota Land Cruisers they've converted to EV, so that's quite interesting, taking a non-EV and converting it over. Fortescue Metals Group is taking some Ford Rangers, purely autonomous, and you think, well, why would you bother? You've got some big machinery there. But in this particular example, these Ford Rangers in the old days, before they were autonomous, they were doing 12,000 28-kilometre round trips.
Yes.
Obviously with a driver in there, and they worked out the cost of that, and they said, well,
Wouldn't
that's...
be bored as a driver.
Well, you would be, but the problem was these were actually very skilled people. They were technicians, they were mechanics, working on equipment, and then, oh no, I need a widget, and they'd have to go and get in the car and drive back over to the depot and drive back. So it's only a 28-kilometre round trip, but it's all those 28-kilometre round trips that add up. So now what they'll be able to do is they say, I need a widget, they'll just send the car over to the depot, and then someone at the depot will put the equipment in they need, and then the car will just come on back.
What powers it?
This is still being run at this stage on a petrol engine, but so they haven't changed the engine on that at this stage, but mining companies across the world are looking at EVs, and there's a really clever example of an EV in a mine over in Sweden, which has got a mine where they're taking some of the ore from near the top of a hill, and effectively what they're doing is they're using an EV, but in all that weight that's on the truck when it's coming down the hill, that's using that to recharge the battery, because it's obviously very heavy coming down, and it's getting enough charge coming down the hill with all the ore. When it goes back up the hill, when it's lighter, it doesn't actually need to be plugged into charge. So I thought, what a clever idea.
You have what powers it?
Three I've got.
What powers it?
In terms of where do you plug it in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what powers it?
So
it's battery.
It's got a battery. Yeah, that's right. A big battery.
A big battery. Now you reckon that cleans the air, do you?
I don't think it cleans the air, but it doesn't pollute the air.
Right, but where do the battery bits and pieces go once it's had its day?
Yeah, so there's a recycling process, but again, it's a really interesting question. Lots of people say to me when they talk about
battery, you know.
Well, no, they say, how long's the battery going to last? And I say to them, the last time you bought a new car, did you say, how long's the engine going to last? And of course, no one does that. The batteries last an incredible length of time. They just slowly degrade. So at the moment, I've got about 70,000 Ks on one of my electric.
What does it degrade to, and how can it help the environment?
Well, sorry, it degrades in how far you can get.
Yes.
So one of mine's got 70,000 kilometres, and I've got 6% less range now than I had when it was brand new. So it's slowly degraded in its range. When I've got 500,000 kilometres on it, it might be down to 85%. So those batteries will last for a long time. And then eventually, when it gets to the stage where you say, oh no, I'm down to 70%, you'll take those batteries and they'll be converted into a battery in your house, for example.
Next to the WPCC, the Western Plains Cultural Centre, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so.
Yeah,
houses.
4 superchargers and 1 NRMA.
Okay, where do they draw their energy from?
So they're getting it from the grid.
From the ground.
From the normal electricity grid. But Tesla, for example, they've got 4 of those, have said that they're providing 100% of their power to their superchargers from green power. So
Are we talking about a battery in the ocean?
No, we're talking about for these ones, they're generating their power from wind turbines or solar power. So it has to get the power from somewhere still, and that's what Tesla has made that commitment. 100% of their power is coming from green energy.
How do you tell? How do you convince us that that's good for the environment?
Oh, well,
all that stuff in the ground, all of that power being all that power being manufactured.
yeah, well, it's there already. It's being manufactured now. The real issue is how you manufacture it. If you're burning coal to manufacture it, it's still better if you actually analyse what a petrol engine or a diesel engine car does to the environment compared to burning coal to run an EV. It's still better for the environment burning coal, but obviously that's not the objective. The objective is to generate our power through renewables, through wind turbines or solar power. That's the objective, because then obviously it's even better again when you're running an EV. So I feel pretty guilt-free. I've got 10 kilowatts of solar panels on my house. I use that to charge up my car and drive around, so I'm feeling pretty good about the environment.
Still takes convincing, doesn't it?
It's a mindset change, and any major mindset change. I'm sure when first cars came out back 130 years ago and people had their horse and sulky, they said, "Oh, how are we going to go around with those silly cars?" Yeah,
Do you reckon we'll all end up in the year 2050 driving EVs or autonomous cars?
Not at all. No, 2030.
2030.
2030 is something that I think will be well and truly on the way to the majority of cars that are certainly new cars, new car sales. Yeah.
Matthew Dickinson reckons 2030.
Happy to do it there.
Yes, I will see you in the year 2030.
Absolutely.
Breakfast is Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk with Matthew Dixon.